I often get asked this question, so I figured I would go to the board to provide an explanation of what grant compliance is. My name is Patrice Davis. I am the founder and CEO of GrantWorks. GrantWorks is a grant consulting firm based in Atlanta, Georgia, that helps organizations find, obtain, manage, and comply with private and public sector grants. So that's foundation grants and government grants. So what is grant compliance? So grant compliance is the adherence to the requirements, reporting standards and timelines, performance objectives, and funding restrictions of a grant. So what is federal grant compliance? Federal grant compliance is pretty much the same thing, except now you're also having to adhere to the Constitution, to laws, and to, of course, the terms and conditions of the grant. So all of the terms and conditions outlined in that multi-page notice of award are the, is a part of your complying with the the terms of the grant, and of course, again, laws and the Constitution. So I've actually led a couple of workshops explaining federal grant compliance, of course, going into much more detail. But about a year ago, I thought of some ways to help, folks understand, again, just at a very basic level, and this is definitely an oversimplification, but I think this oversimplification helps. So federal grant compliance, and this is, of course, my take on it, and hopefully if it helps, and if it does, drop a comment below. If it doesn't, please share your comment anyway. The way I break down federal grant compliance is this way. It's about 40%, right? Making sure that your organization as a grantee adheres to the programmatic and performance objectives of the grant. So you receive the funding, you're to use that funding to accomplish a number of programmatic goals and meet certain performance objectives. So about 40% is a part of complying with the grant. Another 40% is financial management of the grant. And this is where sometimes organizations may not be aware of that. You must have systems in place to make sure that your organization is managing the grant effectively from a financial point of view. And there are a number of things that you need to have in place in order to do that. Then the remaining 20%, according to me, is governance. You must have a strong governance system in place, accountability, and of course, collaboration. So that's about 20%. You need this 20% in order to make sure this remaining 80% is running well, right? So you must have a strong governance system. There should be some levels of accountability within the organization, and there should be effective collaboration happening. And if you see this breakdown 40, 40, 20, again, oversimplification, but it may also explain why there are sometimes organizations that sometimes give grant management and grant compliance responsibilities to their program director, and that's why sometimes there may be some issues with the financial management of the grant, because again, they've given that responsibility to the program director or the program team. In other instances, the program team and the financial folks are very, they're on board. They know exactly what needs to be done. But for whatever reason, the organization lacks a strong governance system. There may be some issues around accountability, and there may be some issues with collaboration. And even though these folks are trying to do the right thing, this really critical component is missing, and that can also lead to some issues around effective federal grant management. So this 100%, let me be clear, again, is just my oversimplification of what needs to be in place in order for an organization to effectively manage a federal grant. Again, would love to get your thoughts about this breakdown. If you want to learn a little bit more about us, you can certainly visit GrantWorks at grantworks.com. Again, we are a grant consulting firm specializing in federal and other government grants. We are grant writers, grant managers, grant accountants, and we provide a range of services. We're actually staffed by federal grant administrators. So we know how to manage grants intuitively, not based on theory, not based on anything that we read in a book. We've actually done this, and so that's why we can actually break down what is actually required to be able to manage a grant effectively. If you have any questions, again, visit us at grantworks.com.